What's going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. Joining me here for a Saturday bench workout. And clearly I forgot to put the clips on there. Look at that waviness of that yellow. But anyway, we're over here benching close grip today. So obviously narrower than our competition grip. And for definition, close grip is it's closer than your normal grip, right? So everyone's going to have different anatomy, different points that will, bother their shoulder, bother their elbow. You got to figure out what works for you. And for somebody like me, I've just always been like a narrow bencher. So the widest I'll go on competition grip is pinkies on the ring. And then basically I kind of do, for my close grip, I do like a measured half thumb where it's over the ring, but onto the smooth towards the center. And I'll adjust from there. And then for that, I definitely do use wrist wraps. I've got really long forearms, so I can really feel like sometimes it almost feels uncomfortable when I'm getting into position to bench. It's just long range of motion, which is the goal of close grip, obviously. So you want to make sure that you're getting full range, and we're always touching our pecs. We're always touching some point of contact. But you can see here from this angle, the elbow hits that 90-degree point. Everyone's going to be a bit different. If you've got shorter arms, you'll get there quicker. That bar won't have to travel as far. It works the same way with squat and deadlift too. You really just have to figure out what works for you. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, even taking the thumb off, doing a suicide grip, which I don't do, is actually more comfortable for me. Somebody with like a really short torso, there's not much surface area. So basically touch the bar on, so you kind of have to figure out your ideal point. You have to figure out what you can do consistently, reps on reps on reps. That's not going to affect you. That's not in any way going to cause any sort of long-term damage or discomfort. Overhead press here. And same logic applies here. Shortening the range of motion going forward. You can see where my elbow joint is, and we're already below that 90-degree point when we're pressing. And I used to touch my upper chest, which was just, like, the range of motion on that was so insane. It didn't really set in until recently in the injury. And that's what I've done now. You can see from the side angle here, getting right below the chin and just getting a good, contraction there in the deltoids. On my dumbbell press, you can feel it too. It's just, it's those long forearms. There's nothing I can do about it. If I could go, long range of motion on it, I definitely would. But it definitely drives me nuts that, having joints like this, the long forearms, the long lower legs just makes every lift so much more difficult for me. I'm starting to realize now. Before I used to think there was like a way to work around it or, to mitigate the risk, but it's just anatomy dictates how well you're going to lift, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you just have to make do with what you have. And it can be incredibly frustrating and annoying. But one good way to tell if someone actually knows what they're talking about is to ask them advice on how they lift. And if they can give you specifics, into cues and motions and things like that, they know what they're talking about. If they can't dive into that and the nuances, they really don't know. A lot of people are just a product of their anatomy. They're just lifting to lift, and it's always worked. But you're really going to learn a lot from people that have had to overcome some sort of adversity, injury, who've had to overcome some sort of, mobility thing like that to work around it, to really iron out their form and then be consistent. And you'll find with time, the people you talk to, you'll be able to dissect and figure out what they're going to do. And usually these people aren't going to be the strongest. The strongest people are genetically built to do certain things. They're going to be good at it for consistency over time. And their anatomy is going to allow them to do it safer than most of us will before. Because they'll be able to reach higher thresholds of weight. But eventually there'll come a point where, there's a trade-off there. All those years of lifting that higher weight, the stress, the tension on it is going to start wearing them down. And they're going to start digging themselves into a hole. And then eventually injuries and stuff will start adding up. And they're going to have no recourse for being able to fix that correction. Whether you're someone more middle of the road, like I consider myself, and if I've dealt with any sort of adversity, whether it's the injury, tightness, some sort of mobility restriction, you'll realize that I've got keys and stuff that I can give you to help you move around all that stuff. And to me, that is super important. You're not going to get that from people that are genetic freaks, so to speak, when it comes to lifting. Because to them, everything is automatic. The body does things subconsciously. There is a point where if you get over complicated with it and you begin hindering your own progress just because you're overthinking things and trying to navigate things down, there's a happy medium between figuring out what works and leaning into kind of those sports science type of principles and like marrying them together in a way that kind of makes more sense. And that's honestly what I've done. Everyone's going to pull, deadlift, squat a little bit different, lift weights a little bit different, but the same principles apply. You want that progressive resistance, that long range of motion, the ability to move through a range of motion safe and secure, and being able to ultimately recover and repeat the event over and over again with more and more stimulus. And that's going to be essentially the most important thing in determining, how successful you're going to be. And you're not going to know that. You're going to need the personal experience, because me telling you this right now, though, it's not going to resonate until you are in a moment where you can apply that and you feel the immediate result of that, right? So if it's something on lats and I say, here, pull with your elbow, retract your scapula, and you can kind of see here I'm retracting that one side and then pulling into myself. And for me, that allows me to combine that cue of the elbow with the lat, and you get a nice contraction. You can literally feel that. Stuff like that is going to immediately set in. And if you are a personal trainer or somebody who gives advice, that's probably the best way to do it, is to be able to replicate that. But thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff. And you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.